Well, hey guys, welcome to Hope Rescue Live from our kitchen table. It's Tim and Kimberly Scott serving up some solid life experience and knowledge.
I always feel like this is a plane, and when you started out, it just takes off right away. When I kind of slowly taxi around, bump into a few other planes.
That's not true. This is our second shot at an intro because I messed up the first one.
It was glorious.
But here's the thing you can count on is you never know what I'm going to say because I don't know until the mic's on.
Yeah, well, the mic's on. So let's see what you got.
Well, we've been a cool series on things that are hard to say. And this episode, we're going to talk about our fifth installment, which is saying, I need help. Why is that so hard to say sometimes?
Well, we're going to talk about that, but I'll tell you what, I have struggled with that myself.
Yes.
I'm a independent guy, but the Bible's very clear about there are times that you do it on your own, and then there are other times where you need help. And one of the scriptures that we're going to look at, or the scripture we're going to look at, kind of brings that kind of a balance, like
together.
What about this time and what about that time? So, yeah.
Yeah, we want to hear that scripture?
Yeah,
here it goes. Want to hear it? Here it goes. Galatians 6:1. It says, brothers and sisters, if anyone is caught in any transgression, you who are spiritual should restore him in a spirit of gentleness. Keep watch on yourself, lest you too be tempted. Bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. For if anyone thinks he's something when he's nothing, he deceives himself. But let each one test his own work, and then his reason to boast will be in himself alone and not in his neighbor. For each will have to bear his own load.
Yeah, so we have talked about this passage before, and it's really important to understand this. Somebody who's overtaken in a fault is somebody who has been overcome by something in their life that is controlling them,
right?
Whether it's addiction, some habit, some negative habit, attitude that they can't get past. When that happens, you need somebody to intervene. And he uses very strategic words for burden. He uses in verse 2 where you bear others' burdens. He uses a Greek word in the original language. This was written in Greek. And he uses this word baros, which means a heavy burden. When you have a heavy burden or an unmanageable burden, you need someone to help you.
Yeah.
When in verse 5 he says, for each person shall bear his own burden or his own load, he uses the Greek word fortion, which means to carry a light load or a manageable load. So if you're moving something that's very heavy, you need help. Or maybe it's just awkward. Maybe it's not that heavy, but it's just it's really long or something. And so you're going to need help. When it's something that's small and manageable, you don't need help. In fact, it's insulting to not help someone when they have a heavy burden, but it's also insulting when you try to intervene when somebody's already managing it themselves.
Point.
Like, I've got this. No, let me do it for you. And we do this all the time. Like, we're working on something up close. Like this, we're handling something, trying to thread a needle or something like that. And
when was the last time you threaded a needle, Tim Scott?
It's been 50 years. But anyway, something like that.
Intricate.
Yeah, intricate. And we both do this, maybe me more. And where I just want to get my hands in there and do what you're doing and
let me do it
with it. It's like, I got this, like, okay, all right, you got it.
Yeah.
But that's the difference. And when you are in a position where you have a heavy load, you need people to help you out. And here's the lesson that we learned from this passage. People who need help in life the most oftentimes are totally unaware of their need and will deny vehemently they need help. So this is what it says. If anyone thinks he is something, this is the verse you just read.
Yeah.
If anyone thinks he is something when he is nothing. In other words, you think you've got it together, but you don't. That's when you need help. In fact, that's the heavy burden because you're self-deceived.
Right. That's a good point.
And I think that's really what we're talking about is I need help at times, and people or unwilling, or we need help at times, and sometimes we're unwilling to say, I need help.
It's a matter of pride. It's a matter of sometimes insecurity that drives that. Those are so closely related too, by the way, pride and insecurity. It's a matter of wanting not to be seen as incompetent. There's certain personality types that lean more towards, not wanting to ask for help. The type A leader, and actually a stubborn child. To be honest with you, you could see it around 2 years old. No, like I want to do it. We
can watch our grandkids. We got number 9 on the way, but you can watch. There are sometimes they're just like, stay out of this.
Yeah, and it's actually healthy. You see in a child that desire to I'm going to feed myself. That's a good thing. But that's where it starts, is how do we discover when to say I need help. And then there's the extreme version of we'd mentioned before, like the narcissistic personality, where it never passes their lips because, unless it's used to manipulate someone, their supply is what they call it, and there's that they need to keep people around that need to feel like they're needed. That's actually a manipulative ploy, is to gather people around you and to use them, and you play on their need to be needed. So, so that's a twist, otherwise they have a tendency to just, not want any help at all. And even in their insecurity, they refuse to admit it. So, but why is it so hard to say, I need help?
We wrote down a few things that might be helpful to understand about that.
Yeah. So here's a few things to throw out there, reasons why it would be hard. And maybe you can relate to one or many of these. I know I can. The first is they don't want to be an inconvenience. That would be where I would lean.
I struggle with that too. I don't want to ask somebody to help me because I don't want to intrude on them.
Right. I rarely fight the battle of I don't want to be seen as incompetent because, I don't know, maybe for women in general, it tends to be easier to say, hey, could you help me with this, Yeah. But I definitely don't want to be an inconvenience to someone. And there is actually an inner dialogue, let me see if I can do this myself. The second is they don't want to be judged. Now that everybody can relate to. Why don't you know how to,
you should be able to do this
task.
on your own.
You don't want to be seen. You can't do that. The third is they don't want to be labeled, as, that person's incompetent. Right. Or in the office or among coworkers, it's so unfortunate because that's how we learn and grow, is by asking questions,
Yeah. At work, oftentimes, I'm dealing with things that are kind of outside of my experience and my knowledge. And I will have to say, hey, I really don't. In fact, just recently, this happened this last week, where I was talking to the CFO, and we were talking about this financial matter, and he shows me this spreadsheet, and he knows when he shows me that I kind of go to tilt, and I'm like, okay. He said, look, you created this document, and it really makes sense to you. So what I'm going to do. I was so happy he did this. He said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this information from this spreadsheet and I'm going to put it over here. And it just simplifies it for me.
Yeah.
And he started sharing, as we're reviewing budget and stuff. Now I can read a spreadsheet.
Line items
Excel.
make me dizzy.
Yeah, but it's so much. And for some people, they see it and they kind of drool. They love it so much. I'm the kind of drool because I'm out of my league, But it's really powerful. And if you don't care that you're being labeled, well, I don't know what I'm doing there.
Yeah.
Then you go, I don't care. At my age, I'm kind of like, you know what?
Hey, help a brother
I'm not
out.
Pretend I know what's going on here. I'm sitting there.
That's so healthy, but that's rare, and it's challenging to admit that because I think, like number 4, we don't want to be exposed.
Yeah.
We just don't want to be exposed as not having all the answers, and nobody does. That's the irony of it. Nobody has all the answers.
Yeah, there's this old concept called rugged individualism. It's kind of it was a reaction. I think it was, it might have been Harry Truman that talked about rugged individualism in contrast to communism. And communist was the collectivist mindset where we all need each other, which is very true. We do need each other, but the politics of that is interesting. But a rugged individualism kind of works like this. We need God. we need our immediate family, and we need freedom. And there's a lot of truth to that, but rugged individualism and the need to isolate myself and never ask for help is kind of an overreactive to collectivism. And I think we need to realize we do need other people. And that's why God says, love God with all of your heart and love your neighbor as yourself.
Right.
We need each other. When man was created, God looked and he said, it's not good for man to be alone. And it's not. We need each other. We need connection. We need help with life.
Right.
And we need that, for psychological reasons, but just also to produce well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And speaking about needing each other, and directing this towards couples with acute marital problems often refuse help. And we've seen that, there's getting to be less of a stigma. Thank God for that. But there's all kinds of different reasons why that happens. I think generationally, it depends, when you were born, like, the boomers, the Xers like me, my parents didn't, well, that's not true. They did go to counseling. I've heard of a couple of stories that they've shared, but it was less common.
Yeah. Let me tell you that the builders, that generation, my parents' generation, which would be your grandparents, but my parents, not
Grandpa.
Really. Yeah. My parents are of the builders' generation, World War II and before, during the Depression, and the way that affected them was you've got to work, we need help from others, but we really need to, focus. And what they would do is they looked at ways to be self-sufficient. And then the boomers came along and we saw the value of working together, and yet we were independent. And Gen Xers, your generation, Kimberly, is much more open to it. But what I found and what I admire in the millennials is they are way more open. And I think that's true probably with Gen Z as well.
Let me tell you the difference I see between being an Xer. For Generation X, when it became open was in times of total crisis. Yeah. That's when a couple would be like, oh, this isn't working, our marriage, they're threatening divorce, let's go see a counselor. Now the trend is to stay healthy, stay in connection with good therapy and a lifeline, with an outside person that has wisdom, and preferably godly wisdom, because that can send you sideways if you're not getting the right kind of counseling. But they see it as a matter of maintenance and mental health and relationship health.
Yeah, and part of that is the modern development of psychotherapy,
right?
Because there was no psychotherapy before, the Freudian development, then all the other systems that came off of that and are completely different than that. And then the Christian community became more engaged in that in the 60s.
Right.
And so I think there's much more open to it, and I think that's healthy.
Yeah.
But you're right, when these couples find themselves against a barrier, and it kind of goes across generations, they refuse to get the help they need.
Right. And even our generation, even in our marriage, that's always been like you have to hit a certain point. But I see our kids and how in their marriages and relationships, they reach out and get couples therapy. I couldn't be more proud. I think it's so amazing. And again, we always let them know, make sure you know the source, and because it's very important when you're opening up, especially we're speaking to couples in your marriage, a third voice, it needs to be one that is surrendered to Christ, and that is, going to give you biblical principles, because you'll get all kinds of advice out there, not necessarily in your favor.
Yeah, it's not just a third voice. That is absolutely essential, but it's a qualified third voice.
Exactly, yeah.
And that qualified third voice may not be a therapist. It may be a really good pastor, or it may be a really good friend.
Right.
Who can say, have you thought about this? And therapy's great, and it may not be for you, but the reality is you need help. When you reach that point of acute marital problems, don't let embarrassment. We wrote down
Yeah.
reasons why people don't do this. The first one is embarrassment of
Right.
exposure.
Right.
We don't want to expose the fact that we've got a problem.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so
And
that is interesting.
Yeah, another reason is we don't necessarily believe in it or that it will work. You
Yeah.
know, you hit a certain point where you've been running into the same problem for so many years and you've kind of given up hope that this is going to make any difference, you know?
Yeah.
It's like throwing a Band-Aid on a gaping
Yeah.
wound, you know?
Yeah.
So they don't necessarily buy into the fact that it'll work. And another one is that they don't necessarily think they need help, which we've talked about.
right.
I'm not the one that needs help, you know, it's my wife, whatever. Well, just that in itself, you're headed towards divorce at that point because it requires both of you to recognize that you need the help.
Yeah.
And then the fourth is something we all fight, and that is that we risk the fear of not, of having to change, and we don't want to change.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because I think I'm not a guy that enjoys change. I actually, excuse me, I'm happier with change when I'm in control
Well,
of
of
the
course,
change.
yeah.
But even then, I don't like change. I like things to stay the same. You know, I'm kind of a, in all my years of pastoring, I've been in less than 5 churches.
Which is
in
rare.
50 years,
Yeah.
and one of them for 3 years, and, 2 of them very long, almost 3 decades. And, it's a really, change is difficult.
It is.
And it's difficult for me. I don't enjoy it. Your father was the opposite. He
Yeah.
loved change.
The adventure of change.
Yeah, but and I think you like change. You're way more adventurous than I am.
I think as I've gotten older, I love routine. One of the things I so am grateful for that God brought through you into my life was a rhythm of life, systems. And, that was missing for all of my adult life and even in raising kids due to the culture of the home life we had before. And so I love and appreciate that about you. And yes, I think I'm the one that leans into us like, let's do something different, you know?
all the time.
Yeah. And in fact, it's going to happen today because it's our date afternoon.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I do love, I love some variety, but nobody likes breakneck change, I don't think.
Right.
And if you're addicted to that, then that to me speaks to potentially escapism, which is not healthy either.
That actually is a really good point.
Yeah.
If your relationship, we are talking about couples at this section of this, and it could be with anything. If your relationship does not give you that moment of contentment where you can just be together,
present,
and you need activity, there may be a problem.
Right.
And one of the things that we wrote down is, and you go ahead and read that. I'm going to cough while you read
No, that's okay. Yeah. Just saying we need help with our relationship could be the beginning of the relationship that you've always wanted. So acknowledging it together. Yeah. We need some help.
It could be the beginning. This could be the new.
Yeah.
So this is what I think happens a lot of times. We go, if I was with that person, then I'd be better.
Right.
Or if I was with a different person, I'd be better. When in reality, the person you chose a long time ago, or maybe, a couple of years ago, is the person you want. You just need to fix the things that are creating barriers in your relationship.
Yeah.
And so, what do you do when marriage is difficult? Many couples, they go, I'm going to go to another relationship, or I'm going to have an affair, or
because that'll fix it.
Yeah, that'll fix everything. Never.
Yikes!
It's never happened.
Talk to any couple that have been through that and actually chose the other person. They almost inevitably have ended up in divorce again.
And it's the person that you're with can meet your needs. And you can meet their needs, and you can have mutuality and a beautiful relationship. So you've got to do the work.
Yeah, and that's the key is that you mutually have to agree, let's do some work. Because I think, I'm thinking of the person out there, the wife or husband, that's like, I've been getting counseling on my own for all these years. It really is true that it does require both individuals to give everything they have to work towards that. Yeah. One person can't carry that weight. And so, and I still encourage counseling for that one person. We're not encouraging you to leave the marriage, but for a marriage to thrive, it really does require both people all in.
Yeah. And our statement that we're saying is difficult to say is I need help. And think about this. If you're in a relationship that is not working, and especially if it's marriage, if you're married and it's not working, if you're not married, you can walk away, maybe not easily, but you can. Marriage is a little different. The trauma of walking away, you've entered into a commitment, and it's very traumatic to walk away. But to lose hope in your relationship is one of the great tragedies of life. And the remedy for that is to say, I need help. And to say to your spouse, I need help with our relationship. And, hopefully together you can say, we need help. Because if I need help, then Kimberly needs help.
Yeah.
Because we're one.
We're one, right.
And so, if it's not working, it's not working for us. It's not just not working for me. It takes two to make a marriage work. And it really is important to understand that. But it only takes one person to ruin it. Now, usually both people do it together. They ruin it together when it's ruined. But there's a series of back and forth. You failed, so I failed, so you failed, so I failed. And then failed in communication, action, lack of love, disinterest, complacency, all of those things. But when the marriage is not working, or when the marriage is working, it's because both people are working at that. So Kimberly needs to do her part. I need to do my part in order for our marriage to be optimal. So you can't make someone love you. You can't make someone be the best spouse for you, but you can create an environment where reconciliation can be found. You can create an environment where love is spoken and encouraged. You can create an environment where honesty is entered into. You can create an environment where healing takes place.
That's right.
So this is what we do. We create an environment, a healthy environment for a solid, healthy relationship.
Yeah.
So I need to be healthy as a man to be a husband to my wife. My wife needs to be healthy as a woman to be healthy, a healthy wife to her husband. So it's important that we both work on ourselves, but it's also important that we are honest and create an environment for love with each other. I think it's important. Again, I'll say it again. Losing hope in your relationship is one of the greatest tragedies.
Yeah.
And the remedy, I need help.
Yeah.
Don't avoid, I need help. And excuse me, just to close this off, when you're thinking about saying, I need help, say that at work. Say it in your relationships with your children, with your parents. Say it in your relationship with your friends. Say it in your relationship with your spouse or your love interest. Whatever, someone that's in your life, you need to be able to say, I need help. Sometimes that's professional help. Sometimes that's just a little bit of moment for somebody to listen.
Yeah.
And just like we talked about, I want to hear more.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me more.
It's tell me more.
Yeah.
It's saying, I need help. I want to know you better. And only you can show that to me.
I think about, just wrapping this up, how Jesus loves so much when we can acknowledge that to him first. And we get to the end of ourselves so often before we think of saying, Jesus, I need your help, and all along he's saying, release the grasp that you think you have on this situation that's not working for you. Release the grasp and open your hands and your heart and allow me to step in and watch what I can do, because your heart is postured towards that, looking to me to help you.
So if you need help, we have literally over 200 episodes on various issues, whether they're theological, doctrinal, spiritual, mostly about relationships, child rearing, marriage, friendships, some on business, some on finances. There's a lot of episodes in our podcast that we have. If you need help, we want to know that this is helpful for you. And if you would like to share with us what you would like to hear in our podcast, we'd love to hear it. We want to help.
Yeah.
So yeah, we encourage you to go to our website, hoperescuepodcast.org. And all those episodes for the last few years are archived there.
And Bible studies are archived
And Bible
there.
studies, yeah. Forgot about those.
I was just looking at those this week.
Were you really?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to give you an extra special something in your check.
Oh, great.
You get a check? Okay. Anyway, well, listen, God bless you. We're thankful that you've listened to Hope Rescue. We are wanting to reach and meet your needs. Let us know what needs you may have, and we'll do our best to address those. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.